Welcome back to the County News Podcast. I'm Nicole Weissman.
And I'm Charlie Ban.
And today you have a really special interview, Charlie, with Sevier County, Tennessee Mayor Larry Waters. Tell me about what he did during the federal government shutdown.
So Sevier County, Tennessee, you might know it as Gatlinburg, Dollywood's around there.
Oh, yeah.
But their big draw is Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's the most visited national park in the country. That's where they derive most of their tourism revenue. But when the federal government shut down, so too did the park. Mayor Waters, who's been in office since 1978, put together a consortium of county governments and cities nearby, and they paid to keep the park open.
And of course, there's never been a shutdown as long as this one, so he'd never seen something quite like this. He'll tell you all about that experience. And then folks might be wondering, the federal government shutdown is over. As of recording, there is a continuing resolution and funding package that's been passed to keep the federal government open through January 30th, 2026. It does include funding for 3 of the 12 appropriations bills for the entirety of 2026. So on the back half of today's podcast, we have a conversation with Mark Ritacco, NACo's Chief Government Affairs Officer, and he's going to give us a little context on why this matters so much, even though the federal government is open again.
All right, let's hear from Mayor Waters. Thanks for joining me. Tell me about Sevier County, Tennessee, and its relationship with Great Smoky Mountains National
Park. Yes, that's really been the catalyst for our tourism industry. Is the national park. It's the most visited national park in the United States by a lot. We have about 14 million visitors come to the park every year, so it's a big draw for our area, and tourism is our major industry, and it depends a lot on the park.
Tell me about the specter of a shutdown and what it would mean for your economy to
Well,
lose it.
in particularly this time of year in October when the leaves change, we have millions of people come to our area to view the mountains, the beauty of the mountains. And if we were shut down, it would certainly have a significant negative economic impact on our area, on the revenues for our government, for the state government. So it would have in our businesses, it would have a significant impact. So it's in our interests to try to keep the park open.
Tell me about the thought process, the inspiration, and the work that went into keeping the park open.
Well, when we there was first discussion about the shutdown, we began discussing with our interim park superintendent and the Department of Interior about what we needed to do to keep the park open, and that it was critical. And we worked a couple of weeks in advance on that, and finally came to an agreement. They have some parking fees they're using, but then a consortium of Sevier County, the cities of neighboring counties, the Cherokee Nation, the state of Tennessee, and an organization called Friends of the Smokies got together and said that we would pay to keep the park open. It's $430,000 a week to keep it open, and
for the entire consortium.
Yes,
okay.
And the Department of Interior wanted to deal with one lead agency, and that became Sevier County. So we are electronically sending them $431,000 a week to keep the park open. We've been doing that since October 2nd, and I'll be meeting with them next week to see how we move forward, because it's obviously it's went on a month now, and we hope the federal government would open up, but there's no assurance of that. So we're going to try to figure out how to move forward.
I imagine you have a pretty busy schedule on a normal month. Tell me about the added complications, the added commitments that come with managing this consortium, being the lead agency in cooperation with DOI.
Oh yeah, it's been a challenge, because we're dealing with not just our park folks, interim superintendent, but dealing with the Department of Interior, and at the same time working with about 7 local partners on funding to get an agreement with them. So we have to get an agreement with the Department of Interior, and then we also have to get an agreement with them. We got an initial agreement for 2 weeks, and then we talked to everybody, and we extended it another 2 weeks, and now we're next week, well actually this week, I'm going to be talking with everybody again. We think we're going to be able to reduce that amount somewhat, because some of the campgrounds are closing for the winter, and we're going to try to reduce it as much as we can, but we're still focused on keeping the park open.
What are some of the things that this money funds?
Keeping our visitor centers open. Also, we have an area called Cades Cove that millions of people visit, keeping that area open, trash pickup in the park, and just protecting the resource of the park. So that's important to us, protecting those resources, as well as making sure that they have security for people there, and that our visitor centers and areas that people visit are all open. So if it wasn't for that, there would just probably be the main road, which is across from Tennessee into North Carolina. That would probably be all it would be open if we hadn't opened everything else up.
Had the park been closed, how would you see the economic activity in Sevier County decrease?
In October, it would be a significant decrease, I think, because that's the reason a lot of folks come to our areas, the beauty of the mountains, the leaves changing. So I would think it would be, probably 20%, 25% folks not coming to our area because they want to go up in the park and see the mountains. So at least that much, if not more. So it would have a significant negative impact on us.
What do you think you've managed to mitigate that down to? How much do you think
We've actually
recovered?
had one of our better October seasons. In talking with our businesses, it's one of the best we've had. I think it's because we've kept the park open. Other parks are shut down, so more people seem to be visiting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park now because it's open, and whereas they might visit another park somewhere, they're now coming to our area. So it's made a significant positive impact on tourism in our area.
How have you gotten the word out that Great Smoky Mountains National Park is open for business?
Our tourism departments in the county and all of the cities do a great job of advertising in our major markets, and they started advertising like a week before the shutdown that we were going to keep the park open, and they continued to advertise that. So they've done a great job letting people know that we're open.
That was Charlie's conversation with Sevier County, Tennessee Mayor Larry Waters. I'm here in the NACo studio now with NACo Chief Government Affairs Officer Mark Ritacco. Mark, tell us about some of the other ways that counties stepped up during the federal government shutdown.
This federal government shutdown really showed that counties' roles and responsibilities serving our residents are so vast. Whether that was counties that supplemented the SNAP program by giving grants to local food banks, paying for food assistance on their own, or counties that own airports offering to pay the salaries of air traffic controllers, feeding TSA workers and airport staff who weren't being paid, or keeping our national parks open. Counties really stepped up and filled the gap that the federal government was unable to fill.
We talked earlier this year when NACo released a report called The Big Shift about the shift of cost and administrative responsibilities from the federal government towards other levels of government. Is this that in action, or is this kind of a sign of things to come? Draw that connection for us.
Well, we talked about the big shift as happening in the future. The changes in SNAP started in FY 2027. Medicaid changes happen over the next several years. We didn't realize that the big shift would come so quickly. And the federal government shutdown really showed us what the big shift could look like, or a big shift could look like. These were previously complete federal responsibilities that counties took over. And not only was that a shift in cost, it was a shift in responsibility, and it was a shift in administrative burden, that counties had to make investments in their communities, both in the actual services and in the administration of programs in a way that they never anticipated.
Now, this was the longest federal government shutdown in history, right? So what is it that we are now looking at as we look towards the road ahead? This shutdown is in the rear view for now, but I think in just a couple of months it could be Groundhog Day, right?
Absolutely. And as the Big Seven state and local organizations really said in a unified voice, that shutdowns are no way to administer an intergovernmental partnership. So as intergovernmental partners, not only were we opposed to this shutdown and called for this shutdown to end, but we have concerns about any shutdown for whatever political reason, because as intergovernmental partners, we need to make sure that the key piece of that partnership, the federal government, is always there to help serve our shared constituents. So it could be Groundhog Day again. The bill that Congress just passed only funds the government for 11 weeks. And on January 30th, 2026, we could be in the same situation all over again. Granted, the contours of that future potential federal government shutdown are a little bit different because SNAP and WIC are funded for the full fiscal year, and those programs were really in the spotlight during this federal government shutdown. But you never know what program or activity will be the thing that puts the intergovernmental partnership in the spotlight in shutdowns to come, which, again, from NACo's perspective, we hope doesn't happen.
Thanks so much, Mark. If you want to catch more of Mark's perspective on this or any of the issues that come up here at NACo, you can catch him on Inside Washington. That's every other Thursday. It's a webinar that you can chat with him. I think he shares his email all the time. He would love to hear from you. Mark, thanks so much for joining us here, and hopefully folks will hear more from you on Inside Washington and County Countdown and all the other places.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Mark.
That was Nicole's discussion with Mark Ritacco, NACo's Chief Government Affairs Officer. Thank you for joining us for NACo's County News Podcast. You can learn more at naco.org.